Hello, students of geometry. Good to be back here teaching you some new material starting with 7.5. And again, if you have your notes, follow along, fill this stuff out. Otherwise, just follow along, maybe take some notes on some paper. This will help you with your assignment pertaining to this. Previously, we dealt with the Pythagorean theorem, where we had a right triangle. We knew two sides of a right triangle, and we were looking for the third missing side. Now this problem here, this A5 problem here with the water tower, you can see we have a right triangle. We know one side, looking for this height here, and we can't use a Pythagorean theorem because we also have an unknown hypotenuse. We do know this angle here, and with that angle and this 47.3, we can find it, but it's something new. So the essential question down here, how can you find a leg of a right triangle and know the other leg and one acute angle? We are going to use something known as the tangent ratio. And again, tangent is one of our trigonometric, known as trig, functions. Okay, so let's kind of continue. First of all, the tangent ratio, and again we write tan instead of tangent as often as possible. Save ourselves some writing. And again, it's a ratio of the two lengths of the sides of a right triangle, specifically the legs. Okay? And again, remember, ratio is a comparison of two numbers or two items. And in this case, it's going to be related to the measure of the triangle's acute angle. So let's go ahead and quickly define tangent ratio. And again, we're going to say, hey, we're going to use tangent. And so if I have this triangle here, and I have 37 degrees here, and I have x here, and I've got 19 inches here. To use the tangent ratio, it's going to be the opposite leg, and we're going to abbreviate OPP, and it's the adjacent leg, and we don't use the hypotenuse. So in this case, we would write this equation, tangent 37 degrees over 1 equals x over 19. The x goes on top in this case because it is the opposite, and that is where it goes. A way to remember is to use this mnemonic device TOA, which means tangent of the angle is opposite leg over the adjacent. So this is a device to help us remember the tangent ratio. So let's go ahead and put this into practice with doing a few, but not all of these problems. So continuing here, if we're asked to find the tangent of J, J is here, here's the opposite according to where the angle is. So we're going to say, hey, the tangent of J equals 24 over, and then here's the adjacent, 32. They want us to simplify this out. We can divide some 8s out, common factor. We get 3 over 4. Now if we go ahead and we work on the second part of this, the tangent of K, so I'm going to say, hey, I got tangent K, and I could put that over 1 if I wanted. And here's K, and now here is the opposite in terms of that angle, so 32 on top. And then the adjacent now changes to this, depending on where the angle of interest is. So that's going to be 24. Same numbers as above, except it's the reciprocal or flipped. Okay, sketching this triangle. It's got to be a right triangle, of course. To use tangent, we need right triangles. So I'm just going to whip up a right triangle. There's my right angle. Now I have to be careful here because if C is going to be tangented, I don't know if that's a word, it's got to be one of the side angles here. Now I could put H or S either place, but now I have to, if I'm going to use this side, they have this common point. This has to be S and this has to be H. So if I double check, I've got this. Here's my opposite, HS. That checks. And then SC or CS is the bottom that checks as well. So we're good there. Kind of a strange problem. You won't see this problem too often. These are the guys that you'll see lots of, or a few. So again, I've got an angle of interest. Here's the opposite leg, and here's the adjacent. So I'm going to use my TOA. So I'm going to say the tan or tangent of 56 degrees over 1 equals x over 13, opposite over adjacent. Now when we go ahead now, and we now need our calculator to figure out the tangent of 56. And again, your phone has a scientific calculator on it, so you could use that. And again, we want to the nearest hundredth, so let's go a couple of decimal places here. So I'm going to go 1.48 once I calculate it. And remember our teacher-approved shortcut for solving proportions. We multiply the diagonals that have numbers, and then we divide by the leftovers. So I basically have to take 1.48 times 13 on my calculator for my second calculation, and I get x equals 19.24. Alrighty? Moving on, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this next one here. Right triangle, I've got my angle and I've got my opposite. And here's my adjacent leg. Again, using TOA. I'm going to say the tangent of 61 over 1 equals 22 over x. Now this time the x is in the bottom because x is the adjacent leg, not the not the opposite leg. So again, we're going to determine what the tangent of 61 is. And again, calculator time to do that. I get 1.80. And from there, we can do our teacher-approved shortcut with this type of proportion. And so again, I'm going to multiply my two numbers, 1 times 22, and divide by 1.8. So when I go ahead and do that, I take 1.80 times 22, and I get 39 I got to divide. I didn't do that right. So 22 divided by 1.80. I get 12.22, which is correct. And those are my answers. These are the most common problems that you will see. Now, this problem we're going to pass on. Let's take a look at this last problem. Okay? So let's go ahead here, and the road salt is stored in a cone-shaped pile. So now remember, my kind of general rule with these types of problems is we split our work area and we make a sketch of a cone that's upside down because that's the way salt is stored. Let's label that this is 22 feet and that this angle here is 32 degrees. I'm going to make an additional picture here of just the right triangle that's within this here. So if this is 22, then this has to be 11. So this is 11. This is my right angle. This is still 32 degrees. And I'm looking for x here. I'm looking for the height of the pile. So this is a good example of TOA. I've got an angle. I've got the opposite. I've got the adjacent. And that works perfect with the O and the A with TOA. So I'm going to say the tangent, 32 degrees over 1, equals x over 11. Excuse me, I just had to sneeze into my arm here. Now, again, like previous, the next step is to go ahead and find out what the tangent of 32 is on the calculator. Tangent 32 comes out to be 0.625. Oops, 0.625. And now we go ahead and do that teacher-approved shortcut that we've done in the past. We're going to take these and multiply it. Remember, that's a point here. And divide by 1. So that's going to give me x equals, and I'm going to multiply 6.25 times 11. And I get about 6.9 feet, because we had feet tall. Now, one last thing is, let's go back to that first problem that we had here, A5. We had this situation. So here I've got my angle, I've got my opposite, and I've got this as my adjacent. So I can say the tangent of 53 degrees over 1 equals x over 47.3. And we would finish that out just like we finished out the previous ones. So this is our lesson on 7.5. Use this for help as you work on your assignment, which is be posted to Google Classroom, or there'll be a link on it on a sheet that I'm going to send you. Also, make sure when you're done with that, you check it, because I will post solutions problem by problem. And then when you're done with everything, take a picture of it and email it to me for grading and being put into the gradebook. Again, feel free to email me any questions or concerns you have, and we shall continue this fluid way of teaching, learning, and communicating. Take care. Good working with you guys again. Goodbye.